Hi, I'm Chucky, and I'm your friend to the end.
I hate kids.
Where are we going?
Home.
Where's home?
I have no idea.
Heidi fucking ho. Ah, ah, ah. Fuck you, Andy!
Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 2, part 1 of Chucky Talks. I'm Alex Vincent.
And I'm Christina Lease.
Hi, Christine. How are you today?
I'm well. Alex, how are you doing?
I'm great. I'm doing really well.
Island hoodie you got on there.
I know. I'm styling. Some Chucky Talks merch from a very talented person who sent me this new sweatshirt. Love it.
And I'm an old hooker.
Is that what you are? So we're a week in now. We finished episode 1, part 1 and part 2. This is the second episode. That was a lot of work to get that first one out, but man, it was fun.
It was fun. I'm proud of what we did. I think it came out really well.
So yes, this is episode 2, part 1. The reason why we're splitting it up like that is because we want our breakdowns for each episode to correspond with the episode of our podcast. Had we named this episode 12 of our podcast and we were talking about episode 6, it would get confusing. So there's methods to our madness, promise. On this episode, our interview is with Teo Briones, who plays Junior Wheeler, and Lexa Doig, who plays Bree Wheeler. And we had a great time chatting with them. We're happy to share this interview with you. Before we get into that, though, I wanted to talk to you about, in episode 1, we discussed our auditions initially for Child's Play 2 and how we found our way to that. And it made me think about auditioning in general, coincided with the fact that I had my first audition in like 25 years this past week. When I was a kid, I was auditioning all the time in New York City, commercials, print, all the time, driving from Jersey into New York to audition. When I was like 17, 18, I thought I was going to give this a shot again, and quickly realized that I'd have to take off of work, pay for gas, parking, and tolls to go to New York City and audition. And it wasn't in me at the time to make that kind of sacrifice. Nowadays, taped auditions are becoming more and more common.
No, they are the standard. That's all
It's the standard now. Yeah, it's all taped, which has its advantages and its disadvantages. What do you think about making that transition as an actress, going to tape from these in-person auditions?
Well, there was a transition that it used to be back in the day, it was all live. And if anyone wanted to have an opinion on whether you were cast, they had to physically be in the room with you when you did your audition. Then they were doing that, but they were also taping it. I thought that was the perfect hybrid. So if you do a really great job in an audition, and they say, for example, they bring you back to network to be a series regular, and you blow it in the room because it's your nerves are so at such a high pitch, they have this tape of why they brought you. So there's a backup performance of that proves you can do it when nerves aren't killing you. The live room's gone away entirely now. I mean, it was pretty much gone even before COVID. Self tapes were already becoming the thing, and the disadvantage. And now because of COVID, it's fully that's it. From my perspective, I do better in a room, even though I'm wildly nervous. I get I can't overstate to you how nervous I get.
I understand. Yeah, I know.
Like fucking diarrhea and like fucking panic,
Yeah.
TMI, but the truth. And I've learned one of my greatest acting abilities is to is to act like I'm not that nervous. And I've seen my own tapes, and I know how afraid I was. And I look, and I know what to look for, and I don't see my nerves. And I know how afraid I was, and I've learned to mask it. Now I trust that I can mask it. But for me, the advantage of getting to do it at home and getting to do it over and over again till it's perfect, and getting to pick which take they ever see, is not as much of a help for me as I think I'm a more dynamic person in a room. I think that they get no sense of your personality. They don't have any, like, they don't talk to you. There's no talk, there's no conversation, which there used to always be. What are you doing? And if you had like some funny thing happen to you on the way to the audition, you could tell the anecdote. And then you get the opportunity, they could say that was really great, but this character is funnier or meaner or whatever. Do it again this way, and they adjust you, and they can see whether you can take direction, and then they can have you do it a different way. That's gone entirely now too. So if you don't give them what they want, there's no chance to fix that. And the jobs that I've gotten, I also tend to be not a mainstream choice for things. I'm kind of a controversial choice. I always have been, and I remain so. So historically, I was benefited by the fewer people involved in making the decision. If there was 3 people in a room and they were the only ones that saw me do it, so they had to be the only ones that could say whether I got the job or not, I was much more likely to get the job. Now they tape it. I send my tape to my agents. I don't have any guarantee that my agents will forward it to the casting director. They have multiple clients for the same role, so they could weed me out before the casting director even sees it, which I won't even know. And the casting director has the same opportunity. She or he can also cut me from the mix and forward like the top 10 people, and I was the 11th. So I don't know, I could do all this work and then nobody ever sees it except my agent. And then assuming you do get put forward by the casting director, then it's uploaded to a link, and every fucking asshole on earth who has an opinion can express it about your audition. And for me, that's a great disadvantage, because there's always going to be a couple of people that don't like me. And just inevitably, someone's always going to say no to me in every room. So I don't like it. I wish it would go back to the old way.
Yeah, I mean, you covered so many of my thoughts about it, but that's true. I think that the advantage to being in that room and showing yourself as you're presenting a character to someone is to them to see that it kind of gives validity to your character when it's so different from you, and you have that opportunity to show that. Whereas if it's a tape where it's kind of right to the point of the character, they're not really getting to know you and what the experience of working with you might be if they don't know you yet. And I think that is a disadvantage. But yes, the nerves, the pressure of it. Like, I did this taped audition the other day, and I was able to not be nervous about it. And I think that is because I felt a little more in control of the situation, which is a great thing. You get better out of yourself when the nerves aren't impacting your performance. Mm-hmm. For sure. I mean, honestly, it's one of the biggest obstacles of performing, I think, is to just be comfortable in your own space. If you're not, it's difficult to give your best. And in a film, when you already have the job, that's easier to separate than when you have the weight of this opportunity on your shoulders in an audition, for me. Right.
But my experience is different in that there's an urgency that comes from the nerves that and you can do it once, and they maybe you didn't do it all what they wanted, but they just know physically you're not going to get the job, so they just don't let you do it again. You can ask to do things again. Sometimes they let you do it again. But you mostly don't. It's like you shoot one shot and that's it. It's like, okay, great, bye. I can do it again. No, that was good. Bye. So that urgency gives energy to a performance that can disappear when you're in your own kitchen or your living room with your mom or your girlfriend or something reading lines, and you have no sense of the stakes really. And I think that's also a disadvantage for me. And I read with my mother, who's a horrible actress. She can't even fucking read the page. She can't even read the dialogue. Like, I'll do a take and I wait for her to say her line back, and she doesn't. She's busy like staring at me or whatever. And you can't edit the audition. So if I do this, Gil, Fucking say the line. I look insane. Just sit like I have to start over again now. And so it's a whole fucking thing. I hate it.
That's great though. That's I love your mom. I love your family.
Another advantage to being in a live room, I sort of covered it, but here's an actual anecdote about an actual experience of mine. I read for it was for Sean Patrick Flannery's show called The Strip. And I was auditioning to play a detective that was going to be his love interest in a bunch of episodes. And I did it. I read for it. And one of the producers, they're like, okay, great. That was great. And one of the producers was like falling asleep. I'm like, I couldn't have been that good. This fucker's falling asleep. And they were like, oh my God, do it like that. Give that attitude to the character. And I got the job. But if I hadn't done that, then I wouldn't have, So, I mean, I've fucked up things. I've done things like the audition is someone's beating me up and I have to do all this physical like pantomime and you're like, oh my God, no. And scene. Just to make fun of how ridiculous I feel.
Yes, yeah.
Shit that doesn't help. I never get those jobs. And one time I read for some mafia thing and all the 17 syllable Italian names, like any questions about these names. And I said, yeah. And they go, is it, Sharappa and da-da-da. And it was, they were right about the two that I had to say, but they'd already said them for me. So I had the information. So I go, no, not those. This one here, John. How do you say that? And they were like,
John.
No, it was a joke. And they were like, yeah, you can go home now. They fucking hated
Well, that's part of it too, is, you, as actors, you rehearse and we're almost all analytical people who think about our every move, especially when you know it's going to be on camera, and you can anticipate so many things about an audition, but you cannot anticipate the energy of the casting director, the people that are there.
Mm-hmm.
And that could throw you off real quick, especially when they're dismissive. If they're seeing so many people in a day and they're kind of fed up and tired or didn't have lunch or whatever their thing is, and maybe they're not that welcoming of a person to begin with, it could break down your comfortability real quick if the energy is not good in the room.
Yes. And also a reality of actual live auditions is you can often hear the people auditioning ahead of you because the walls are thin. I fucking hate hearing what somebody else is doing. So I tend to go outside so I can't hear them because I get all in my head about it, my choices that I've made. But one time a girl did an audition and then she was in there forever. They fucking loved this girl. Like you could just tell. They're She opens the door and the whole room's like And when she walked out and they called me in, I said, I feel really bad for that girl. Obviously she blew it. And she clearly hadn't, and that didn't work either. My comedy is unpopular.
You mentioned about Gail not being a great actress. Made me think, how many times in your auditioning career did you get to audition with an actor that was already on the project?
A couple of times. I read with the kid on Party of Five, the younger brother, as a chemistry read and get the job. I thought for sure I'd get the job because I was blonde at the time and everybody in that fucking show was brunette. There's like 8 million brunettes. I'm like, they got to cast a blonde eventually. And I don't think they ever fucking did. He was a friend of a friend though. He knew Grant Show, and Grant Show was about one of my best friends for a while. And he told him that it went really well, but they went with a brunette. More often I have gotten the job and I'm doing the chemistry read with the person who's the other part. And the most sort of fun one was I got a early job called Boiling Point. It was not called that at the time, but it's called that now. And I read with a bunch of people and then they cast Viggo Mortensen. And I got to play, I got the job before Viggo had the job, which was fun. But my fire show, I did a show called LA Firefighters, and I got the job was written for me. The role was written for me and gifted to me by a friend that I'd worked with before. And I did and it's an interesting experience to be on the side of the power of being the one that's cast already is amazing. But more intriguing, it's a really rare window into seeing other actors audition and watch the mistakes they make and watch them be nervous and let their nerves show, or watch their people who like to pantomime, they're driving and they do this stuff and they hold a fake, like if you can, in an audition, if you can possibly not do any of the pantomime, they suggest you should not do it. And nobody drives like this, by the way. Just have it, just pretend that you're parked in the car or something. And one girl did it. There was a crying scene for the role that I didn't have to cry, but the character opposite me did. So all these girls had to come in and do this crying thing. And one girl just did this is the worst fake crying ever. It was like, and then my mother died. And I was like, it was impossible. Like that I was like biting my lip. I'm gonna burst into hysterical laughter. This is the worst acting I've ever seen in my fucking life. And that actress was Meryl Streep.
Yeah, sure. I didn't get too many opportunities to audition with an actor from the film. I mean, obviously that happens a little more in callbacks and like, chemistry reads and stuff like that. But there was one experience that I remember. I auditioned for a director and the lead of the film. And this was the movie Little Man Tate. And the person who interviewed me was Jodie Foster. Who cast, she was casting, she was the director of it. So she was there and I got to audition with her. And I thought it was very cool, but it did certainly add another element of anxiety to me. And, I remember a good deal about my life auditioning as a kid. Some things are harder to picture the memories as strongly as this one, because I remember going there. And this would be an embarrassing story for me had I not been a child when this happened. But I was a child, and children do silly things, and I'm comfortable telling this story because of that fact. So I remember she asked me, have you been signing autographs for people? Have you been meeting people and signing autographs? And there was a situation that happened like a week before or something. I was in a bowling alley and someone asked for an autograph and I signed a shoe at the bowling alley. And I remember telling her that story. And I think as kids often do, to make stories more exciting, they tell meaningless lies that have nothing to do with anything. And there's no benefit to telling some silly lie other than trying to be interesting, I guess. I had the pressure of that with her. So I told her, for some unknown reason, that I signed an autograph for a kid at a bowling alley, but I signed it with a disappearing ink pen. I thought that was funny to me for some reason. Yeah. But I didn't, being 7 years old or whatever, I didn't really think it through, because her response to that was, well, that wasn't very nice. And I was like, oh shit, I fucked up. And so my quick thinking, although equally dumb, if not dumber, said to her, no, it was disappearing ink, but it was disappearing and then reappearing. Oh. And she looked at me like, so this audition ends and I walk downstairs like this to my mom downstairs. And she's like, what's wrong? What's wrong? I said, I lied to Jodie Foster and she knew. And I remember that to this day as being a silly thing I did as a child. And you live and you learn. But there was one quick when I was a kid that I remember I had a line. This was right after Child's Play. And I was in my head already too much at that point, after Child's Play 2. Because there was a big time between when we finished Child's Play 2. I still auditioned for years and wasn't getting anything for whatever reason. But I remember I had a line, the first line of the read. Someone said something and I go, what guy? And instead of just being natural, like, what guy? I like really laid it on, like, what guy? Or so I did something silly. And I remember someone from the back of the room went, and like right as I said that line. And that was it. I was done. I had no chance after that. I was just like, I'm terrible, and I was shot.
I think that's a perfect segue for us to go into our interview with Teo and Lexa.
Me too. We had a great time talking to them. Teo Briones and Lexa Doig, both just lovely people and terrific actors. Mm-hmm. And it's another interview that's our privilege to talk to them. So without any further ado, here is our interview with Junior Wheeler, Teo Briones, and Bree Wheeler, Lexa Doig.
Enjoy.
Don't fuck with
All right,
the
let's
Chuck.
see if we got them here. Teo should be with us here. We will bring him in. And
Hello.
and hi, Teo.
Hey.
And here's Lexa.
Hello.
Hi, Lexa.
Oh, of
Thank you both for joining us. So good to see you guys.
course.
Thank
Yeah.
you for having us.
Yeah.
This the Chucky family is a tight-knit bunch, so we're so
Oh, yeah.
happy to have you guys on board with us. It's been a fun few months. I know the fans are all excited about the show, as we are, and this was just a good chance for us to chat with you guys about your experience and working together, and you know, being part of this Chucky franchise and legacy that has affected so many people in this world. So we have a bunch of questions for you. Got some fan questions, got some fun questions. Want to really start at the top here for you guys. Teo, you grew up in a family of performers. I'm sure your earliest memories in life, much like mine, we started at a similar time, was being a performer. I'm
Yeah.
sure I doubt you remember much else before that.
Yeah, no, not really. I think the first thing I really remember doing was I was in a choir. I was in like children's choir of some production of the musical Joseph Technicolor Dreamcoat, I think.
Oh,
And I was in the children's choir for that when I was like 4. And then when I was 5, I think I had my first audition because, you know, my sister, my mom, and my dad, they were all always going out for auditions. And I was like, when am I going to have an audition? And they're like, all right, I guess it's time.
do you remember at all as it was going, if you knew right away this was something for you, or did you have hesitations like maybe I'm not the performer in the family?
It's interesting. I think it never crossed my mind that, oh, is this something I want to do? I think it was just sort of, yeah, ever since I can remember, I've just been just acting and I just love it so much. It's like my favorite thing. So
That's
So,
awesome.
So Lexa, I want to ask you a similar question, but I want to just preface it by saying, like, people ask me all the time how I got started, and it's sort of a pointless question because how it never is the same for any two people. So I wonder what inspired you to try and how'd it go?
I had always wanted to actually be an actor, like since I was a child, like kindergarten, but didn't know how to get into it. So I just thought maybe modeling would be a way in, and thankfully I had a modeling agent that would send me out on commercial auditions because I'm short. I'm not tall enough to be a model. So that's kind of how I got into like the working aspect of it. And the upside is like when you're late teens, early 20s and not hideous to look at, you'll book commercials.
Yeah.
And that's how you get your permits, and then you get into the union that way, which is kind of how it happened for me in terms of being a professional.
So there are two specific projects of yours that I want to talk about, one each, before Chucky came into your lives. For you, Lexa, it would have to be Jason X, which,
Yeah, I figured.
horror fans,
yeah.
horror fans are a huge fan of your work in that, and that, franchise, obviously. What was your experience in that film? What stood out to you as the most memorable takeaway from doing that?
One of the cool thing is the kills. That's my favorite thing about horror, is the creative ways, it sounds awful, but the fun and creative ways of killing people. And I think my favorite kill in that one was when the character Adrian, or is that the actress's name? It was so long ago. Oh, I'm old. Got her head stuck in liquid nitrogen and then smashed.
Oh wow.
Oh yeah.
It was so cool.
Yeah.
Like we were all actually standing there behind watching it going, it was pretty funky.
So Lexa, you survived Jason only to ultimately get killed by Chucky, which
I guess that makes Chucky tougher than Jason. Hey?
a little bit, I gotta say. So Teo, one project that I have to ask you about for sure is Ratchet. Now, first of all, you got to work with your dad in that, which must have been really awesome.
That was really cool. One of the highlights of my career, definitely, especially since he got to lobotomize me, which was very fun.
Your
I think
dad,
that was awesome.
spectacular in that. Your dad is
Yeah, he was
fucking crushes it in that.
he's pretty cool. He's
Yeah.
Yeah,
really good.
John was unbelievable in that role, and so were you.
Thank you.
I
Thank you.
was really, maybe not your first like real dark role, but you could tell that you fit well in these dark characters. And I find it very interesting that you went from a guy who gets a kid who gets lobotomized for having too many daydreams. You segued from that into the nightmares of working with Chucky.
Yeah.
And I want to talk to you guys about your audition process. First of all, Teo, what was your awareness of Chucky when you got this audition to begin with?
I mean, obviously I'd heard of Chucky, and it's, a huge like just name in pop culture. So, so when I actually got the audition and then I got a call back before I like sat down with Dawn or anything, I was like, all right, let me watch some of these movies. And I watched a few of the movies and I just fell in love with the aesthetic and the feel, just the vibe of the movies. But there's something about Chucky that wasn't quite full on horror. You know what I mean? That it was an amalgamation of so many different kinds of movies that I just fell in love with the franchise so much. And then when I talked to Dawn, I felt like such a geek. I was like geeking out on the movies, and I was talking to Dawn, and it was really amazing because when I first talked to him too, I could just tell how much he loved this franchise and how much he cared about making it as amazing as possible, and making sure that he really got the right actors. And I just from the first moment talking to him, I could tell that he was going to be an amazing just director, showrunner, just creative person to have on set. And so I was like, yeah, I got to do this. And also I fell in love with the character. And when he was explaining the character, he explained it in such a way that I was just like, I just need to do the show. This is me. Junior is me.
Well, I can tell you, I've known Don since I was a child, 34 years, and I still geek out every time I talk to him too. And not only does he have such a passion for this franchise, obviously, but what a passion for films in general.
Yeah.
Lexi, the audition process for you, how did that go? How did Chucky find his way into your life?
It was funny because I was actually doing another project when I was asked to self-tape for Chucky, and I actually said no initially because of the going to Toronto, because I'm Vancouver based, and just because of the logistics of it. And then it sort of came back. It's like they really need, I think this is probably after they cast you, Teo, because it's like they really need somebody who's Filipino to play this part. So could you please? It was just another job until I spoke to Dawn. And after I was cast and the deal was done and everything like that, it was, Dawn would love to have a Zoom meeting with you. And I had a Zoom meeting with Dawn, and I got off the Zoom with him and I looked at my husband and I was like, this is going to be kind of cool. Like, he just described to me my character's death, which it's funny because we were talking about this earlier. I'm a bit of a geek for cool deaths, although after having kids, it's weird. Now that I'm older, it's sort of like, all I felt was for Junior. When Dawn was described my character's death, I'm like, oh my gosh, poor Junior, that poor kid. Oh my, that's so traumatizing. Oh my, like I just suddenly turned into mom. Right. But I was actually got really excited about doing it once I talked to Dawn.
Okay.
You have, in my opinion, the most glorious death in the entire Chucky franchise.
I definitely want to talk about your death. We're going to talk about that for sure. I have a lot of things to say about that. It's actually it's my favorite death ever.
It's a good death.
And I think it's no small part of the power of the death that you land on Junior. That, I mean, I thought in a room, people go, oh my God, please don't land on the kid. Don't land on the kid. it's gloriously beautiful and cinematic, and then unbelievably devastating. It's just really perfect death.
Well, it does what it's supposed to do, which is, send Junior off the deep end.
Yeah,
I couldn't agree more. I think it was so beautifully shot, and it's a day on set that I really wish I had asked them to drive me to set on my day off to watch. What was the practical side of filming that? Like, how was that done?
They had come up with all these different ideas of like hanging me by wires and basically shooting it. So instead of, initially had created this rig that looked suspiciously gynecological because I was lying on my back with like my legs kind of up in these stirrup things, and they were going to have the camera over top like this, shooting while I went like this. And then there was another question of like hanging me on wires, but putting the camera this way. And it turned into just me sitting on a bicycle seat, on a green bicycle seat in front of a green screen while they blew fans behind me. And I went like this. That's basically
amazing.
what it was. It really wasn't. And they pull the camera back, and then everything else is like vis effects afterwards. And my stunt double went actually through the glass.
They actually shot that in the parking lot of the studio.
Oh, okay.
They built a big like sort of side of a building, and she just jumped off of it.
Wow,
That's
that's
pretty
amazing.
cool. Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
My death was supposed to be very different, and I was a little disappointed when it was changed, because it was changed a lot. But I'm actually really happy with how it turned out, because now my death was a little more intimate, especially I got to have a nice moment with Lexi. That's her character's name. I almost said Allie. Got to have a nice intimate moment with Lexi, and also the setting was really beautiful. Like behind the screen with Frankenstein playing in the background. Sort of the way I like to think about it was sort of like I'm sort of like the Frankenstein that Chucky created. Almost, I'm like the monster that he created, which I mean, that's probably what Don was going for. And I think it was a really cool death, and I'm very happy with how it turned out. I'm also really happy with how your death turned out, Lexa. It's very, very cool.
Well, you were amazing. Like just the whole look of shock and horror, like, and on your face was just so good.
What I really loved about that. Oh, go ahead, Christine.
Teo, your face, your face is the majority of my favorite moments in the show. You radiate so much intelligence without doing anything. It's really interesting to watch. And that scene where you charge Jake in the driveway of the house, and you charge to confront him in, I think it's the last episode or the next to last episode.
6th episode.
Six?
Yeah.
Your face is so fucking intense, and it's like I feel it in my chest when I watch you charge him, and it's just
thank you.
Amazing.
One thing I wasn't super happy about with that scene was I was sort of I had to walk a certain way because I was wearing weird shoes, and the driveway was like stone with cracks in between each of them, so I had to walk in a certain way, and also the wind was blowing, and my hair. They sort of, they what they did to my hair is they keep it together. So in the scene, if you watch it back, my hair flops up and down.
That's my favorite part of it. It's because it gives such intensity to your approach, because it's like there's wind in your hair. You're coming at him so fast. I think that adds to it. So be happy.
I love that too. I mean, I took note of that also. Like your hair was kind of blown, and it added to the intensity of what you were feeling in that.
That's good.
Yeah, it did.
Back to Bree's death, which, yes, I loved because of the cinematic beauty of it and the intense trauma of it and the holy shit moment that it was. I just wanted to add one little point about that death scene. I love the setup of the cart and everything crashing into the car, because as you're falling, everybody thinks, no, don't land on, don't even let Junior see this. And then not only do you see it, it's so right in your face.
Right.
And I have to say, I don't know if this was done in ADR or not, but that scream that you let out, Teo, was so chilling and perfect.
Thank you.
and
Thank you.
really captured the anguish of the trauma that the viewer felt as for your character. I mean, it was really just spot on.
Thank you.
You know, it starts off with you being a pretty big dick to Jake in that first dinner scene. And I'm curious, in your own way into this character, what do you think Junior's motivation was for giving him so much shit to begin with? Like, why do you think there was an animosity there? That was it jealousy? Was it envy? Was it you know?
It's more just he needs somewhere to. I mean, he doesn't have a problem with Jake. He doesn't really have a problem with Jake at all, and that's why he is a little bit more sympathetic towards him when, you know, Lexi and, you know, like Oliver and all those other people do, you know, mean stuff.
Yeah.
But it's just his father is so and he's just not a good dad, and just puts a lot of stress, and just puts the weight of the world, is what it feels like to Junior, on Junior's shoulders, and he just needs to
Event.
vent, and he doesn't do it in a good way. I don't condone venting by being homophobic or being an asshole, but he's just, even though he's rich and you know, Jake's very poor, and, you know, Junior arguably has a better, you know, more comfortable life. His home life still is not perfect, and there's a lot of problems there, and that, I think that's where Jake and Junior also have a lot of similarities. They really aren't very different at all.
But what you're saying, I think I agree with entirely, and I think you can kind of tell that at some level, I think it was just busting chops and being like, you know, the older cousin. I take him as slightly older, you know, actually I think he is, right? But I also noticed that, you know, I think Junior feels like, you know, I can mess with him, but that doesn't mean that everyone around me should. And he does feel a little sense of protection to the character, especially in that very disturbing scene where Lexi is dressed up at the Halloween party. And
Junior's horrified by that. He's absolutely horrified, because I mean, that's also his uncle.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I mean, it's his uncle and it is his cousin, and you can tell that this is a girl that he has a lot of feelings for, but this was so over the line for him, you know. It's surprising that he wasn't more eager to kind of distance himself right at that moment, you know. But it just shows the feelings he had for her. I got to talk to you, Teo, about one of the most interesting things about your character is the turn, the turn after everything has collapsed in this kid's life. As an actor, that must have been really fun to shift gears like that.
It was very fun. I mean, this is by far the most interesting, you know, complex and rounded character I've ever played, because he starts out in a place and ends in a very he ends up dead. That's another thing. I've never died. I've never died before. That was really cool. But the transition from, you know, who Junior was to, you know, who he, you know, ended as was so fun to play, because I mean, it's like I got to play multiple different characters in one show, because each stage in the show he was just dramatically different, and I got to explore a lot of different, you know, tones with the character, and it was so interesting. The most unique acting experience I've ever had.
Dawn, but come on, it's so Dawn to take a show that I think a franchise that could be easily underestimated.
Yeah,
the nature of it, and to have the writing be so intelligent
Yeah.
and sophisticated is great.
And you just did a beautiful job with it, Teo. I feel like a proud mama, but
Thank you.
No,
Thank
I
you very
think-
much.
no credit for it.
I think you both did a similar thing. I think you both took complicated characters that had some qualities that aren't necessarily immediately likable
Mhm.
and made them both likable all the way through, even with the flaws that they had. And even like, I felt bad for Junior, even when he turned, I still felt bad for him, you know?
I mean, really, you shouldn't like him. He killed his dad, but I'm glad that I was able to play the character well enough. And
But his dad was an asshole.
Yes, his dad
Like
was an asshole.
that's kind of what
True.
it comes down to in some
Yeah.
respects too. I gotta say that was a pretty cool death too. Logan's death.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
That was
pretty cool.
that was my favorite scene to film for sure.
That's like ultimate camp fun.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
being beaten to death by Chucky, but like not by Chucky.
Right.
Yeah.
Chucky's
And
being
then I
actually a
started
weapon.
singing the Go-Go's. That was
That's the greatest.
That was so great. I know. It was awesome. If I could go back to just one more part about Lexa, your character, Bree. You had a bit of a turn yourself, sort of, because in the beginning of the season, people certainly questioned your motives. And if everyone thought you were cheating, you know, you had a secret and everybody thought you were cheating. And then you have that big reveal that it was cancer. And I think that, you know, so much sincerity came across in that revelation. And I think you really nailed that. But the character makes a decision to not seek treatment. And she's young to make that decision, you know, it seems to me. So what were your thoughts on that? Was there, did you relate to that? Did you feel like so?
I didn't. That was actually a challenge for me because I was like, I disagreed. I mean, it's always, I mean, every actor I think has that experience where they look at the choices that their character makes and they sort of go, I disagree. I have to find that place inside of myself to make this truthful where I would, you know, what are the mental gymnastics or the mental circumstances I had to create for myself that allow me to believe that this is a valid choice. I still wouldn't make it for myself personally, or at least I don't think I would. Which is why I think like I made the choice that right before Bree dies, she changes her mind. And then she dies, right? So, which is, you know, the ultimate kind of, thanks, Chucky, you fuck. But it was choosing certainty over uncertainty.
Great, that's a great answer.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think you guys, the chemistry between you two is very obvious. You were perfect people to play these characters, perfect actors for it. And I sense that you had a lot of, I mean, you have a lot of similarities. You're both Filipino heritage. You're both actors for a long time. You both started with gymnastics.
That was one of the coolest things, because the first time I talked to Don and he told me I got the part, I was like, hey, about my mom, can you like, and before I even finished my sentence, I was going to say, can you make sure that it's played by an actual Filipina actress?
Filipino, yeah.
He was like, don't worry, we are looking for strictly Filipina actresses. And I was like, thank you so much. That's so cool. And that was really impressive. And I think that speaks to just how inclusive when it comes to every aspect this show is.
Yeah.
The show is so it just won a GLAAD award, which is awesome. Yeah, I'm just super happy with how, you know, representation was handled with this show. Representation.
I was so excited because when I talked to Don, that Zoom meeting that I had with him just after I was cast, and he had sort of said to me, he's like, send me notes, tell me anything you want about, like, you know, like the little details that I was so appreciative that they had. Like I was joking about things like there's any Filipino knows what I'm talking about when I talk about the wooden fork and spoon that's up somewhere in your house. Guaranteed you've got a fork and spoon, or you've got the Tinikling dancers, or you've got, like, you know, it's like little details. Like I said, rice cooker is never going to be in a drawer. It's going to be on the counter. Why? Because it's used all the time. Like all these little details. The fact that they cared enough to put together a meal, which wasn't 100%, but they tried.
They tried.
I really appreciate it. Yeah. And I really appreciated that they, you know, put together a meal that was had Filipino dishes, like traditional Filipino dishes and stuff. Like, so I really appreciated that.
The nice
And-
white lady tried to.
I did appreciate it. She did she did a very good job for somebody who probably wasn't that familiar with the cuisine. So God bless.
I'm glad to hear you guys both said it, because I saw an interview with you once, Lex, where you mentioned George Takei when you're growing up. That George Takei was the only representation you saw on television for the AAPI community, and I wanted to ask about that with this show. This show really does seem inclusionary of not just race, but gay kids, and it just seems very inclusive. So I wonder what you guys feel about that.
I loved it because Don gets it. Like, he gets that it's a big deal, but not to hang a lantern on it.
Yeah,
right?
That's one of
Because
my biggest problems with just like I guess representation. A lot of the time it feels forced, and when it feels forced, it's just like, when it feels forced, it just like, what is the point of this? This isn't helping anything. You're just doing this so that, oh, look, we represented these people in our movie.
Yeah.
Give me a gold coin. But it really just felt natural, which was awesome.
You can't take the color without the culture.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that's where Dawn was like really cool about just allowing it organically and naturally to be brought into it. And I also saw it with the relationship between with the boys. It's this beautiful teenage love story, right? And it's full of all the awkwardness and the self-doubt and the questioning and all the things that you see in a straight relationship is there in a gay relationship, and they're not hanging a lantern on it like it's a gay thing. It's just kids that really like each other and are trying not to die.
Alex and I have both noted that as far as that love story, that it's just and it just happened to be two boys, and that's and
it's not about that.
And for the most part,
I loved it.
And no one gives them shit except for the little bit of Junior. Like, that's just not an issue, and I think that's such a contemporary position to take, because kids nowadays don't have to take issue with these things anymore. Kids are so much more minded than they ever were, like when I was growing up. Dawn's just a fucking genius.
Cool. Oh, there's no doubt there. Yeah. All right, so I have a couple fun, easy either or questions that are just quick and fun. Well, one of them might be a challenge, but the other is going to be easy for you. So I'll just ask it, and I'll go to Teo first, and then you, Lexa.
Okay.
Teo, horror or comedy?
Comedy.
I'm going to go with comedy as well, just because I don't get to do it very often.
Yeah, I kind of relate too. Teo, I think I know the answer to this, but rock or pop?
Rock, yeah.
Are we talking like, I'm gonna go rock?
Oh yeah, what era of pop?
Yeah, exactly, because I'm down with pop from the 80s.
Yeah.
Not gonna lie. But not
in generalities.
Generalities.
You both as rock, but
probably rock.
I'll go rock if we're gonna put it across all of the decades.
The beach or the woods?
The woods.
Woods, for sure.
I agree there.
I don't really like the beach, honestly.
I really don't either. I live in Florida.
It's a bit wet sometimes.
I can't take it.
Yeah. And the thing is, we live in California, and my parents are always like, "Oh, let's go to the beach," but I don't enjoy it, and I don't feel like a real Californian because I just don't enjoy the beach. I just find it boring. I just don't like sitting.
Me too. I don't like getting
in the sun.
I don't like being fancy. I don't like the sun. I don't.
Sand.
Yeah.
I'm really down with
I like the sun. I don't like getting sand in all over the place, but I'm also biased because I live in Vancouver. We've got the best forests here. Like 5 minutes away from my house.
You got a beautiful coastline too. I can go years without seeing the beach too, so don't feel bad. I live in Hollywood, and I can go 5 years and not see the ocean. So
I was gonna ask this one, but I might fuck up the pronunciation of one of these. Adobo or pancit? Is that how you say it?
Pancit.
Good, yeah.
Pancit.
Yeah.
Teo?
That's like asking me to choose a favorite child.
Yeah.
Well, they're not all easy.
Yeah.
some pancit, I'll take over some adobo, and some adobo will
Yeah.
take over pancit. That's what I'll say. Because there's
Like,
Lexa said earlier, lots of different regions in ways that
yeah.
different food is cooked in the Philippines. So yeah.
Like, there's my favorite kind of pancit is pancit sa tanghon, which is like with the glass noodles.
Yeah.
But then you can have like pancit Shanghai, which is like a little bit more of a Chinese kind of vibe. And adobo, it's like, I'm down for a good chicken adobo pretty much anytime, but pork adobo, not always.
All right, I'm going to put you on the spot now with a tough one. One more each. This one's just for Teo. Teo, music or acting?
Can't ask me that question. I mean, we spent the whole podcast talking about acting, but look behind me.
I know.
And there's more. There's more. I can't answer that. Okay, I'll try though. If I were to do something, because here's the thing, if I keep acting, as my career, which I hopefully will, I'll probably stop. I'll probably retire at a certain point.
Mm-hmm.
But with music, even when I get older, I mean, it's music. You could just keep doing it. So I guess that's one thing. But if I couldn't give up music, because you can't always be acting, because you need to get a job to do that. But you can always be doing music. So I'd probably have to choose music.
So much
I agree with
harder
that.
to pay the bills with the music, though. Music is very difficult to pay bills with.
Yes. So is
Yes.
acting.
I know, but
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is. I agree with your answer and reasoning though. Okay, now I'm going to put you on the spot, Lexa. Jason or Chucky?
I'm going to go with Chucky. Just because the experience of it was, to be honest with you, personally, it was really quite challenging to be in Toronto. It was very difficult for me to be away from my family, and it was like mental health wise a little bit of a mind fuck again to be away from my family for that length of time, because I haven't been. But creatively, all of the creative people involved in the show were amazing. Like the cast that I got to meet and work with, Dawn, like the directors for the most part, and I don't mean that to be shady, it's just I didn't work with all of them. I don't think. And like there was so much creatively about it that was so much more rewarding than working on Jason X. And again, different mediums. Like one was a movie, we shot it in 6 weeks, and then this I was in Toronto for 4.5 months, I think it was.
Yeah.
So it was a bit of a different experience in that regard. But yeah, I think I'm gonna go Chucky, because there's like a camp quality to Chucky, like the humor that sort of like, even the whole thing about like Jennifer pretending to be Jennifer
Oh yeah.
is
Yeah.
so meta and so amazing, right? Like there's just it's so amazing about it. So I gotta say Chucky.
yeah.
All right, that's a good answer. All right.
Yeah.
So I have one fan question for you. I put it out there to the fans to ask questions, and I got one that was interesting. Just kind of a quick answer about it. But Jesse 1130000 asked, what were your reactions to finding out that your characters would die?
I was very excited. Personally.
Yeah, I wasn't surprised, if that makes any sense, just because it's a horror, so you kind of know going into it that the chances are high you're going to die, obviously. And gotta say, I'm with Teo. I was really excited when Dawn told me how my character was going to die initially. And again, not gonna spill any secrets about what the initial plan for her death was. Because I think the one that wound up on screen was pretty spectacular on its own.
Yeah.
I was really excited.
Yeah,
Super excited.
I would think so. I mean, of course, I'm happy my character stuck around for a long time, but if I were getting this as a new project and to find out I'm being killed by Chucky, I mean, that sounds like an exciting thing. Like, how could
It's
that not be?
kind of iconic, right?
Of
Like,
course, of
It's
course.
pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I'm sure I'll know what that's like one day. Or maybe I'll kill him someday. Who knows?
I mean,
Yeah.
you have killed him a couple times.
Yeah, we killed
Yeah, I
him.
know, but none of it takes. It never takes.
Yeah.
Well, I thank you guys both so much for coming on and chatting with us. Really gave me a lot of more insight. I know the fans are super going to appreciate it. And just for taking this whole your roles and this franchise that has meant so much in our lives for so long. And we'll be there with you forever. I mean, when Chucky tells you he's your friend to the end, he's not fucking around. 'Cause life forever. And we thank you so much for that. Thank you guys again so very much. Really so happy to have you here. And I can't wait to see you guys again soon.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah,
Of course.
for
Thank
sure.
you so much for having us. This is fun.
Thank you so much for having us. Yeah.
Great. Thanks, guys.
Oh yeah. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
So good to have talked to them. They were interesting and fun and exciting. And I know that this means a lot to them, which is, great to hear and know that they took this as seriously as we do. And that this means as much to them as us. And that's obvious and that's awesome.
I'm sad they both died because they're favorite characters of mine. I'm
know.
a big fan of Junior and Bree, so maybe
Well, the
that's-
Chucky universe, you never know. You never know. But thank you guys so much for watching. Please tune in next week, Tuesday at 10 o'clock, where we're going to break down episode 2, Give Me Something Good to Eat, the Halloween special. Lots to unpack in that episode. We're very excited to do that for you and to have you with us for that. Next week, see you next Tuesday, 10 o'clock.
See you next Tuesday.